As sports history fans, we often reminisce about the legends. Willis Reed limping onto the NBA Finals court, Kurt Schilling's bloody sock, Kerry Strug's courageous dismount, and so many more. These moments often define sports history. But what about the countless injuries that did not become legends, or careers that were derailed due to inadequate care? That's where this episode's sponsor comes in. Introducing to you, ILP Sports Consultants, your trusted sports injury partner, available 24/7. Brian Maelli at ILP Sports Consultants has over 20 years of experience in the orthopedic and sports medicine industry, and he has worked with athletes across the gamut, from youth to amateurs, professionals, in almost every sport played in the United States of America, accommodating athletes at every stage of their career. This adaptability ensures that ILP services are perfectly tailored to your skill level, no matter where you are in your athletic journey. With ILP, you are in control. Choose the steps that matter most to you. Diagnosis, treatment plan, recovery, or the whole journey. ILP services are tailored to your unique needs. Rushing for care is a common pitfall, leading to future problems. ILP Sports Consultants helps you make the right decisions, ensuring that you receive timely and safe care. And here's a bonus. Brian hosts the Injured List podcast, sharing insights and athlete stories you won't want to miss. Whether you're a concerned parent or grandparent, or an athlete yourself seeking guidance, ILP Sports Consultants is your beacon of hope in sports injury management. Visit ilpsports.com today. That's the letters ilpsports.com. ILP Sports Consultants, where your well-being is the priority and your recovery is the mission. Choose ILP Sports Consultants for a healthier sports journey, helping you get back in the game the smart way.
Blog Talk Radio.
Tonight, we'll go back in time, seasons past, when 22 men graced the rugged fields of yesterday, fighting for one more first down, one more yard gain, one final score which would bring victory after 60 minutes of battle on the gridiron. Tonight, we'll explore the world of Gridiron Greats. Welcome to Gridiron Greats Football History and its Memorabilia on the Gridiron Greats Publisher and Broadcasting Network, in conjunction with Swick Enterprises, and we're live from the Wallingford, Connecticut home of Gridiron Greats Magazine. I'm Bob Swick, publisher and editor of Gridiron Greats Magazine, and I'll be your host for the show. Gridiron Greats Magazine is the only publication in America which focuses upon the history and memorabilia of the North American football game since its inception in 1869. We cover 140-plus years of football, history, and memorabilia. You can find us on the web at gridirongreatsmagazine.com. Is at this time, I'd like to introduce my co-host. He's a senior contributing writer to Gridiron Greats Magazine, a football memorabilia historian, specializing in pre-World War II items, in particular Red Grange, and also Seattle Seahawk items, in particular Steve Largent. He hails from Portland, Oregon, Mr. Joe Squires. Joe, welcome to the show this evening.
Bob, happy to be back. Took a week off. Had to go to a wedding in Mexico for a friend. Thanks, Jeff, for standing in. I listened to the show when I got back. It was a great show. I mean, not Bob and Joe great, but great show.
I got to say this. I was inundated with emails after I had loaded the show up and the broadcast world had started to listen to it. They want to know when Joe was going to come back. And I said, hopefully, with the man's busy schedule, that he could squeeze in a show before the upcoming Thanksgiving weekend, which I know you're going somewhere for Thanksgiving for family. And yep. I'm honored you've taken time out of your 72 hours that you're back in Portland, so we can do a show here and talk about a few things and get caught up in
yep.
the world of football during I may add, the height of the football season.
Absolutely.
2019.
Absolutely.
High school, college, professional. Unbelievable.
Yep.
But
yep. And
I'm a little
special treat for the listeners today. I've got a Joe's quiz, for our guests. So I'll always enjoy those and have fun with them. So that's my welcome back to the show. To myself and the viewers. So
it should be very interesting. And I'm a little down today. We're recording this on the Monday after the Sunday Night in America football game, in which the new coach of the Green Bay Packers had the same expression and look that I saw too many times from the former Green Bay Packer coach, Coach McCarthy,
Man.
Of a deer in front of headlights, and you're driving about 60 miles an hour at that deer, and you got to figure out real quick which way you're going to turn to avoid hitting that deer, number one, to prevent about $10,000 worth of damage to your SUV, and not to kill the deer. I saw that last night. I was not happy in any way, shape, or form seeing it, and I'll just leave it like that. Very disappointing.
The pack looked like, the pack definitely looked like that deer, and to continue on with that analogy, they didn't move. They got shellacked by that SUV. That did not look like the same 49ers team that the Seahawks beat the week before. They showed up with a vengeance. They showed up to put a stamp on it and to show everybody that they're for real. That was an impressive win. On the Sunday night game. Sorry about that, Bob.
Right. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I understand. One team must win, and one team loses on a Sunday, or a Thursday, or a Monday, or whatever, or Friday night.
Starting to encroach on all Saturday. Yeah. The Oregon Ducks, my local state team, lost to an unranked Arizona team. And it's those interconference, teams. In this case, the Pac-12 that always worry me. I mean, it's just unranked when you go in against somebody they've got nothing to lose, everything to gain, and I always worry about those. And number six ranked Ducks lost. So
it was interesting because that game was on locally here, so I watched a little bit of it. I was flipping around the different games that were on, and I'll just make one comment college-wise. It was the annual Yale-Harvard game here in New Haven on Saturday. And
no wonder you tuned out.
and sadly, after two overtimes, and as the nightfall was approaching at the bowl, now there's no lights there on top of it. The game finally finished. It would have been finished a lot sooner if the social protest did not take place at halftime, which caused a 1-hour delay in the game. A couple people I know called me on Sunday, and they told me about it, and they said, Bob, I am so happy you didn't go, because I know you would have been on the field breaking them up and telling them to get the game going. So,
Bob, I saw that happening, and I had to laugh. I was literally just chuckling to myself. at the thoughts of people linking arms, sitting on the field, and Bob Swick sitting in the stands or sitting at home. What the hell? Get these people off the field. What's going on? Just the thought. I as well am glad you weren't at the game, because I don't know if Stacy would have let me fly to the East Coast to bail you out of jail. So it definitely made me laugh.
Me for the wrong thing, so.
Yeah. It definitely made me laugh just thinking about you and your reaction to that. Just that did crack me up.
Oh man. The sad part, I go back a few seasons. Brenda was on the field doing a photo shoot for Yale. They were playing Princeton that day. It was a good game, and it's pretty cool to be on the field to watch the game, and you could see everything, real well. Long story short, you go up to the press box there. I could only imagine what the commentators were saying there at the time when this whole protest was going on. And how do you kill an hour of, especially radio time on top of it? It's incredible. But in any event,
how did they? That's curious.
I don't want to know. That's all I got to say. I'll find out later from a couple of people that went, but I don't want to know. It was a debacle.
Man.
So switching gears here, we're going to talk a little bit about football before our guest comes on. And I got a couple inquiries lately over asking me about Street and Smith football annuals and how collectible are they, how tough they are to collect, so on and so forth. So to give the background on them, I've written about them several times over the years, back with my newsletter and in one of the original Gridiron Greats issues. And long story short, Street and Smith was a college/professional football annual that came out once a year, and they had one edition from 1940 to 1962. Beginning in 1963, they went to two issues. One was a professional issue, and the other one was the college issue. And it was classic because you had a nice portrait of a player and/or action shot on the front cover. And the most difficult ones to collect, in my opinion, are the ones from 1940 roughly to 1946 for a variety of reasons. Not a lot of them were printed because of the war, and a lot of them got recycled because of the war at the same time. So those are more difficult to follow, however, to find and to buy. However, I've seen prices every which way with regards to what they're going for on eBay and a couple other auction sites, so on and so forth. Now, I've put together and I've traded that run probably 3 different times now. But I still enjoy picking them up anytime I go to an antique mall or a show and I see somebody has some old Street and Smiths. To me, they're just so classic. They're too good to pass up. And I highly recommend anybody who's seriously interested about the history of the game, if you read that Street and Smiths from 1940 all the way up into the 90s, you get such an incredible view of what the game was, the players of the game, the writing of the time, so on and so forth. And Joe and I, we've talked about this numerous times, Joe. The sports writing today leaves a great deal to be desired. I can hardly stomach reading ESPN magazine. They actually got rid of their print edition. They're only online now. So I said to myself, I have to read it because I get it, but I don't know what I'm reading anymore because it really doesn't tell me anything about, the game. It talks about, social issues, yada, 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 this, that. The guy's 6 kids by 5 mothers, by the time he's 21. All that kind of stuff. It just turned me off listening to it. You know what I mean? And reading about it.
Yep.
So you want real classic football, I've always recommended, collecting and reading Street and Smith football. I mean, it's a great reference, and it's just a great collectible. And to me, it's under, for lack of a better term, it's under collected in the hobby for whatever reason. So I think it's a good pickup and a good buy. to say the least.
Yeah, and we've talked about it in person, and we've also talked about it on the show before, I believe. It's something I'm not familiar with. I've read them before, but I think you had one. I forget, but somebody had one. I read it. It's kind of a cool little blowback. Like, I'm kind of going through. I put together a bunch of cards to submit to SGC last night, and I was going through my collection looking for what I wanted to submit, etc. And I came across an old program of the Portland Rockets, versus some other team, I forget. And it was a program that I must have bought this thing 10 years ago just because of the Portland affiliation. And it was fun going through it and, oh, that hotel is still there. Oh, I know where that is. And it was kind of cool. So it must be the same, just kind of nostalgic thing to go through it and read and, so.
Yeah, I mean, you see the ads of the Times, you see the players of the Times. And I'll also say this. It was one of the few publications that did actually give some press to the CFL, Canadian Football League, at the time also. So that I thought was very cool. And you got some real serious history there because there's really not a lot written about the CFL, especially in the late 50s and early 60s. So that's another real cool part of reading them. But again, we've talked about this numerous times as far as programs. Any type of vintage program, as far as I'm concerned, is more than rare, and the historical value of them are just exceptional, to say the least. So it's really something to look at, to find, so on and so forth. I always buy, if I'm at a show, if I see any old Yale programs from the 60s back, I still pick them up, and because I still feel there's not a lot of them out there, and even though they're not overly widely collected, at the same time, the history of Yale football is still immense, in my opinion. Not so much the last 20 years, but from when it's beginning.
Do you have a current? Go ahead. Do you have a current run of them put together? Have they drifted back into your collection again? Street and Smith.
As far as the Yale programs.
Yeah, no, the Street and Smith catalog or the
Street and Smith
magazines.
Yeah, I have.
You said you put them together before and then sold them.
Yeah, I put the run together probably 3 different times, and over the years, now currently, collector contacted me. He needed a bunch of copies, so I sold him a bunch of what I had, and eventually I'll recollect it and put it back together. You know what I mean? I've done it so many times over the years. It's I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy reading it at the same time. So it's well worth it. And like I said, the toughest issues are 40 to 46. So that seems to be on everybody's want list to try to find them. So at one time I had 3 different copies of the 1940, the initial Street and Smith's annual, and that's a classic read if there ever was one. And I'll find them again. They're out there. You can see them.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. When we went, Brenda and I went on the shoreline, and we ended up at that antique flea market. I picked up the '62 college issue there. They had it there. I mean, I was shocked to see it, and I think the guy was charging $5 for it. It was well worth it as far as I'm concerned. You can't go wrong with it.
Didn't know what he had.
Yeah, exactly. But again, I recommend Street and Smith if you don't have them. Again, a lot of collectors collect certain players, their favorite players from college and pros. Other people, other collectors will want the full historical content, so they'll make the entire run. A lot of collectors start at 1963 when they're the 2 separate issues. They'll collect all the college run, or they'll collect all the professional run. So it's a nice collectible. I highly recommend. If you don't collect it, pick up a few issues. You'll be sold on them, to say the least. All right, at this time, our guest is ready, and I'd like to introduce him to the show. He has been a collector of football pennants for over 20 years. Has an incredible collection of them. He also has an amazing website on football pennants and leagues, which is found at feltfootball.com. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Robert Goulet to our show tonight. Rob, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being on. You're a busy guy, and I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule for being on the show. But I got to say this: I went to your website a few weeks ago, and I must have spent 3 hours on it, just examining and looking at it, and I couldn't believe. I honestly couldn't believe what I saw there. So I'm going to start off our questioning tonight to our audience. How'd you get started collecting pennants?
Well, I was a card collector my whole life, ever since I was a little kid. And it was sometime back in the early 90s in Connecticut, lifelong Los Angeles Rams fan, despite the fact that I lived in Connecticut. I was at a card show in Manchester, Connecticut, of all places, and there was a guy there with a Rams pennant that I had never seen before. And it was a very old one from I later discovered, I didn't know at the time, I wasn't that knowledgeable about pennants at the time, but it turns out it has to be from the mid to late 1940s. So when I saw that, I had to have it, and that was the first pennant I ever bought. After that, however, it was probably 10 years before I ever bought another one, not until eBay came around. And then eBay opened up this worldwide marketplace for me, and my interest expanded. So I would say in the early 2000s is when my love of pennants really started to kick off. As a card collector, 1969 Topps Football was always my favorite set. And what I loved about that set as a kid was that it had the logos of every team on the card. So I started looking for those logos on pennants, and from there it just snowballed. And while I have a pennant collection website for football, I do collect other sports as well. Football is obviously my passion, but I just love the history of the pennant and what it represents. The artwork, to me, it's my favorite type of collectible.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the artwork's pretty incredible.
That Manchester show used to be a really, really good show. There was a lot of stuff there. I remember doing it a few times, setting up as a dealer, and I remember, going there numerous times, buying stuff.
I went there every month probably for 15 years.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I probably ran into you.
Yeah, I probably
what
bought
it's worth,
from you, as a matter of fact.
You probably bought from me. I was just going to say that's amazing. Now I want to put you on the spot real quick, a little off the script though. And when we're talking about pennants, we're talking about you prefer felt pennants as compared to the newer pennants, or correct me if I'm off base on that.
You're 100% correct. On the website, I go up to about 1980. Really, anything after 1980 isn't that interesting to me. The newer stuff it doesn't have the quality, it doesn't have the artistic value, and it was just so mass produced. I just don't feel like there's a lot of collector value there. If I was a fan and I was building a room dedicated to my team, I might have some of that stuff in there. But as far as collecting, it doesn't appeal to me. So all the pennants on my site, there might be one or two rare ones from like the earlier Super Bowls in the 80s, maybe 80, 81, but I really don't get much more current than that. And as far as I'm concerned, the older the pennants, the better.
Okay. And then one other question. I still remember, and I can't think of the guy's name. He sets up at the National every year. He has literally thousands of pennants that he sells. And do you know who I'm talking about? Because I can't figure out what the guy's name is.
There could be a few guys. I know a guy in Dallas that I live in Houston now, so I've come to know pretty well, a guy named Rick Haskins. I know he sets up at the National. He's got an amazing collection as well. And then there's a guy out of Chicago too. Okay.
Yeah. I think the guy you're talking about from Dallas, I think that's the one who sets up at the National because he's got a Southern accent. So
that's probably right.
Okay. All right. All right. That was my question off script there.
Yep, he's got a pretty amazing collection too. Mostly baseball.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Joe.
Rob, like Bob said, I spent quite a bit of time on your website. It's pretty fascinating. Just pennants are something I had as a kid that I used to hang on the wall and loved them. And like you said, loved the feel of them, etc. I can remember discovering eBay in like 1998, 99 too, and it just opened up the world, as well. So kind of funny. One thing I did notice when I was perusing your website, you're very conspicuously missing a Seattle Seahawk tab. Would you like to explain why?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly why. It's just because they came along in 1976, and really the only pennants they have are the double bar helmet or the 3D helmet pennant, which are just so common. And so I don't really have enough to make a whole page for them. I honestly did consider throwing them on the miscellaneous page along with like the Buccaneers, because the Buccaneers, to their credit, do have a couple of cool, very rare pennants commemorating their 1979 championship, the NFC championship game that they made it to. So, but really, there's not enough Buccaneers pennants either to put on their own page.
It's like when an auction house has baseball for sale, and then they have other. And that other includes football, basketball, boxing, and hockey. And you just feel like, the kids sitting at the children's table during Thanksgiving. So I'd rather not have a Seattle Seahawks tab than have them be under the miscellaneous. So
you should take heart in that. I have considered it for a long time and I've looked very hard to find Seahawks pennants, and so far they just aren't out there.
I'm totally kidding, but you're right. I mean, and the logo back then was a little drab, so anyways. No, seriously, collection. I mean, it's just great, and just the information available on your website. Just talking about how they change by decade, how rare they are. Just an incredible website. And like Bob said, I got sucked into the rabbit hole there. About an hour and a half at work. Finally, I'm like, oh man, I have that bid due. So I know it's hard sometimes to pick your favorite child, but what would you say your top 6, kind of favorite pennants in your collection? And can you describe which ones they are and why they're your favorite, kind of?
Yeah. Well, I definitely have more than 6 that I would consider my favorites, but some jump right to mind. That first one I got, obviously, to this day, that Rams pennant I got at the card show in Connecticut. I've never seen it. I've never seen it for sale again. It has to be one of their earliest pennants after they moved to Los Angeles. It's got a painted on old-time football player with a leather helmet. He's running right at you. It's got very vibrant colors. It's got a great graphic. And plus that was my first. So I've had that one the longest. It's special to me. Another one that I found that is just amazing to me anyway, it's a New York Giants versus the College All-Stars preseason charity game pennant for the benefit of something called the Fresh Air Fund that is still in existence today. The game started in 1937. I think this pennant is probably from the 1930s, and it benefited underprivileged children and got them outside and got them out of the city during the summer so they could experience activities that maybe they didn't have access to otherwise. So this pennant is really cool. I've never seen another one like it. It says New York Giants versus College All-Stars. And I'm sure you guys are aware that the NFL champion used to play the College All-Stars every year in Chicago. And, So that was super, super rare. I'd love to find another one. I know the Giants played at least 15 Fresh Air Fun games. They might have even played more. I'd love to find pennants from other games, but I've just never seen one. I have a few defunct teams too. Those I always love finding just because they're so uncommon. I have a Brooklyn Tigers NFL pennant from the 1940s. That's super rare. It's got a tiger head, a pretty common-looking tiger logo, similar to what you might see on a Princeton pennant or even the Detroit Tigers. But it's super, super rare. They were only a team in the NFL for 1 year, so there's not a lot of Brooklyn Tigers memorabilia out there. So I was happy to find that. I've got some pennants from the Continental Football League, too. I love the semi-pro teams like the Philadelphia Bulldogs and I'm trying to think of a couple of the other ones I have. The Norfolk Neptunes, teams like that most people don't know about. So when you find their memorabilia, it's really cool if you can add that to your collection.
Yeah.
Rob, did you ever? Do you have a Hartford Knights pennant?
I've looked. I can guarantee you there's not too many people that have looked harder than I have, and I've never seen one.
Okay, all right. I was just curious because I've never seen one over the years. I have no idea if they ever had them or whatever, so that'd be pretty cool if you did find it.
It's funny how some teams pop up and some teams just, it's almost like they're non-existent. So Continental League pennants, if I can find one of those, I'll definitely try to pick that up. And the Dolphins the Miami Dolphins have a really cool old pennant. It's one of their first ones. And instead of having the dolphin we're used to seeing on their pennant, they actually have a mahi-mahi, which I don't know if you're familiar with what a mahi-mahi looks like, but it's a big square-headed fish. So that one always was odd to me. I was like, why in the world did they decide to put a mahi-mahi on their pennant? But that's one of my favorites as well.
Wow. Those are amazing, truly amazing. I'm curious, how do you display and store your collection, and can you describe that to the audience? That's going to be, I know people have asked me over the years, when they buy a pennant, what should they do with it, so on and so forth.
Yeah, this is an interesting question for me because I just moved to Texas 2 years ago, and I have to be honest, my pennants are all in storage. The football room that I intend on building, I haven't gotten around to. So as we speak, all of my pennants, I have about 1,500. They're all in protectors. So they make both soft and rigid protectors that you can put your pennants in. So they're all in that, stored safely away. I'm kind of I'm a little anal when it comes to condition. So the fact that they're not out fading in the sun, collecting dust, acquiring tears or pinholes and things like that, that kind of appeals to me, and it's part of the reason that I haven't been real eager to pull them out of storage and display them. I know it's ridiculous. It's probably hard to comprehend. When you see the website, you'd probably think my house was plastered with these. And trust me when I say my wife is glad that they're tucked away in storage. But the plan is at some point my football room will have these hanging safely on the wall, safely out of the sun.
Rob, all of us on this show have wives, so when we see your website, we are 99% sure your house isn't covered in these pennants. Just like our wives don't allow us to have all of our crap around.
I swear I threaten at least once a month. Whenever she talks about painting, I'm like, well, I'm just going to hang up my pennants so we don't have to paint. And then that gets me out of painting. That gets me out of painting the living room for at least a few weeks.
Well,
I love it.
So Rob, when you hang them, do you leave them in the protectors, and then I don't know, you would put like something behind the protector to hang it like that, or do you actually take them out?
Yeah. So what a lot of the pennant collectors do, they'll buy the rigid, clear sleeve that you can put the pennant in, and then use like double-sided tape to tape the holder to the wall so the pennant isn't damaged.
Okay. All right.
And I've seen those where you can run string in them too, or something like that. It's got a hole for a tack or something, but it's also got a little spot where you. Okay. Yeah, so you can hang them.
Yes.
So for Christmas, instead of hanging lights up, hang up pennants and just get a flavor for it.
Cool.
Sad to say, we're already too late for this Christmas because that was what we did all weekend.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Whenever Bob and I see a collection, as vast as yours, the first thing that pops in mind is, just how hard it is to put, something like this together. So, you've got to have a couple stories of, meeting someone in an airport to swap, a check for pennant or something like that. Do you have any good stories to share with our listeners? Which I actually have done, Bob. I've actually met somebody at an airport, handed them a check, handed them a duffel bag full of cards, got a check, and then flew back at a round trip flight. So that hits a little close to home. Sorry about that, Rob. You keep going.
No, that's fine, and I'm actually open to that. I would meet anybody anywhere to get the right pennant. I don't really have any clandestine stories like that. Believe it or not, most of my collection was built from eBay. And then over time, as my network of pennant collector friends has grown, I've got people in all parts of the U.S. now who are out looking for me. So if they come across something that they don't want or they think I might be interested in, I've got people who reach out to me and let me know. But eBay built the backbone of my collection. And really the stories that I share about pennants are typically the ones that got away. For example, this isn't my real job, obviously. This is what I try to do when I have some spare time. But last year I had to go to India for work for about 10 days. And my concern leaving for 10 days was it's going to be very hard to stay abreast of what's going on eBay, particularly when I'm on the flight. It was a 15-hour flight, so that was a big blackout period for me. And wouldn't you know, while I was in the air traveling to India, somebody listed a lot of 5 Dallas Texans pennants. You hardly ever see Dallas Texans pennants to begin with, so for someone to have 5 of them is beyond unusual. But the best part of the story was that they listed them for $50. Buy it now. And each one of these pennants would sell for about $400 to $500 individually.
Oh, my Lord. Wow.
After I got settled into my hotel, the first thing I did was, okay, did I miss anything? And I saw that. And I was devastated. I was like, I should have been home waiting for this. This was like what I've been dreaming for the past 10 years. So it gets better. So I finish my trip in India and I come home, and wouldn't you know, one of my best pennant collecting friends was the one who bought it. He got it. So not only did I miss out, I had to listen to him brag about getting it. The upside here.
I thought you were going to go elsewhere with that story instead. I thought you were going to go elsewhere with that story and say one of my friends bought it, saying, "Hey, I thought you might like this." I thought you were going to say he took it down for you. Oh no.
Well, close. He did sell me one of them at a discount, but let's just say it was a lot more than $50.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow. Well, I got to say this. If that ever happened, if Joe was looking for something and I saw it, I would pick it up for him. And if Joe knew I was looking for something, he would just pick it up. And because of the camaraderie we have, there would be no cash exchange whatsoever. I mean, I would just send it to him, and that's it. For example, I found that printer scrap of that 1963 Topps sheet. That little strip of whatever it was, 20 cards or whatever. I picked it up and I just mailed it to Joe, and that's it. So I think, Rob, you gotta express, Rob, to your pennant collecting friends the concept of camaraderie. Of
well, in his defense,
everything should be measured in cash. I mean, really, come on, guys. I mean,
exactly.
In his defense, he is a full-time pennant dealer, so it is his job.
All right. Okay. Well, I can accept that. So.
Yeah, I'm with you though, Rob. I collect uncut football sheets, and like you said, weekly scouring of eBay. Sunday night, and then I usually hit it again Wednesday to make sure nothing filtered through. I should do it more often, but wife and kids. And one week, I remember like 5 years ago, something came up. I'm like, no worries. I mean, I haven't seen anything in months, so no worries. And then somebody I knew was bragging like, hey, check out this full uncut 1948 Bowman sheet. I picked it up for like $250, and I'm like, holy crap! I was just felt my fist clenching. Oh well, these things happen.
Yeah, they do. It works both ways though. Sometimes you're on the lucky end too.
Yep, exactly.
Rob, I was going to ask
like you.
Go ahead.
No, go Bob.
Ahead. Okay.
Oh, I was going to say like you though. I've got friends like you, Rob. I've got friends who know I collect sheets. So once a month or so, I'll get a text from someone or an email saying, "Hey, did you see this one?" So no, I know what you mean. I think the network, it becomes almost more important because that's the people who are looking for the offline deals, and somebody set up at the National, and somebody comes along, hey, I got a bunch of these felt pennants, stuff.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, it definitely
that's very
helps.
important.
It definitely helps.
Rob, we got a lot of collectors who enjoy the old World Football League from '74 and '75. How tough are those pennants to collect? I'm curious, and I know they would be interested to find out also.
Yeah, those pennants are really cool. I think I have every one, at least every one that I know to exist. The great thing about them is they're fairly common. If you did a World Football League pennant search on eBay right now, I'm sure you'd find probably over 100 on there. Typically, they had two versions. They had a helmet version, and then they had a logo version. The helmet ones seem to be a little bit more common than the logos, but they're all relatively affordable. I don't think you would ever have to spend more than $50 for any World Football League pennant. There are a few that are a little bit more rare. I know the Birmingham Americans have a pennant commemorating their first game. As far as I know, that's the only WFL team that does have one of those. I've never seen another one. That one I've seen go up close to $100, but we're not really talking big bucks. Most of like the helmet pennants you can probably get for $20 to $25 on eBay.
Oh wow, okay.
And not so rare. They're pretty common.
Yeah. I would say they're real. The helmet ones, I don't think there are really any rarities for any of the helmet ones. Some of the logo ones are a little bit harder to find than others. The Detroit Wheels logo, it tends to be a little bit more rare. The Florida Blazers logo pennant is a little bit more rare too. And the Hawaiians, they have a red pennant with their logo on it that doesn't come up too often. So those are probably the three of the more rare ones.
Yeah, the reason why I brought it up is the four guys who basically have printed a bunch of card sets lately for the World Football League. I know it's all types of memorabilia, and I know they got a good following as far as people who are collecting. I know they the regular collectors of WFL know a lot about their pennants also, but I was just curious about that for my own sake to understand a little better as far as if they're super rare or not. I honestly don't look at pennants for the WFL. I look more at the programs and the media guides. I'm more interested in those. But that was interesting to hear about those.
Do you guys own any pennants in your collection?
I have a handful of Green Bay Packer ones that are hanging with pins on the wall, unprotected, in my man cave. And as I speak right now, I'm looking at them, and I see a little dust on one of them. They're from the 60s and 70s, and a couple of newer ones from the Super Bowls of the 90s.
Okay.
But that's all I have. I had a bunch of pennants over the years that I bought and sold, mostly from the 60s and 70s. Nothing super rare from the 50s or anything like that, or 40s, 30s.
Well, if you're going to have pennants, the Packers are a great team to have pennants of. Pennant collectors are probably I don't. Packers collectors are. Sorry, guys.
There's a ton of them out there.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, Rob, I've got one of those old Seahawk ones with the lame, lame face mask on it. That's the only one. So boring.
I wouldn't say it's lame. I wouldn't say it's lame.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So along Bob's question,
Bob,
which one?
Oh, go ahead.
Go for it, Rob. No, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on Bob's. The Packers pennants; those are among the most valuable of all the teams. The Packers pennants typically sell for the most money. The Packers fans are so rabid in their collecting of Packers memorabilia that if you get a pennant from, I'm not talking about the ones like the single bar helmet or any of the helmet pennants, but some of the more rare ones from the 50s and 60s, it's not uncommon for them to exceed $1,000.
Right. And I hate to say it, I just can't see myself putting $1,000 out for a pennant because, as much as I enjoy them, I just like displaying a few of them, and that's it. You know what I mean? I'm more of a paper guy, program media guy, ticket stub, that type of stuff. So, it's fascinating to see what they go for. It's amazing. Yeah. And I know one of the biggest Packer collectors, Glenn Christensen, he's been on the show a few times. He has such an incredible amount of Packer pennants. It's amazing to see what he has. Incredible.
Yeah, I've corresponded with him a few times. I'm familiar with his website. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and then kind of along the same lines of what Bob asked, about the WFL pennants. What are the toughest rarest pennants to collect. It's like my son's always like, what's your favorite? What's the best card? And I'm like, well, there's a difference between rare and expensive. They don't go hand in hand sometimes. So, I guess what are the most expensive pennants to collect, and what are the rarest ones? I guess would be a great way to split that up.
Yeah, the most expensive ones, like I just said, tend to be Green Bay Packers pennants. The Packers go back a long time, so it's not uncommon for them to sell for multiple thousands of dollars. Really, of all the teams that are in existence now, really the Packers are the ones where you see the most old pennants selling for that kind of money. If you want to talk about Holy Grail in terms of rarity, it would be any professional football pennant from the 1920s NFL. They're like Bigfoot. Nobody knows if they really exist. There have been a few sales over the last 15 years. A Canton Bulldogs pennant. Pottsville Maroons. Maroons pennant sold for about $7,000 a few years back. But you just never ever find them, and my friends and I debate about whether or not they really exist. One of my friends has what he thinks is a Duluth Eskimos football pennant, but it just says Duluth. It doesn't say Eskimos. It just says Duluth. So there's a difference of opinion whether or not that's really a Duluth Eskimos pennant or just a Duluth high school or something like that. So those are really the hardest ones to find. And then more recently, you have some of your defunct teams sell really well. Like in 1943 and 1944, the Steelers merged operations in 43 with the Cardinals and 43 with the Eagles and 44 with the Cardinals. And there are pennants that exist of that combined team. And those also sell for multiple thousands of dollars when they come up for sale.
Yeah.
Wow.
We have I was going to ask you about that one, but we have a little pop quiz that we like to throw on people towards the end of the interview. But you just dug into it, so yeah, I like it. Bob?
That's amazing. Yeah. Another question, and it's a question I ask every guest on every show. What advice can you give any beginning collectors, and in this case, a beginning collector of pennants?
As far as pennants go, really, first and foremost, spend time on eBay. At any given time, there are 40 to 50,000 pennants on eBay. So if you are interested in getting involved with pennants, that's definitely the first place to look. A lot of card shows, I used to go to card shows all the time. There weren't always pennants at them. If you go to the bigger ones, I know up in your area, White Plains is has a pretty good show, and there's typically guys selling pennants there. But it has to be the local shows typically don't. You have to go to one of the bigger regional shows to find pennants at a show. So I would say eBay is your best friend. Spend a lot of time on there. Collect what you like. If you want to collect for pleasure, buy whatever you want. If you want to collect for investment purposes, then condition is key, and keep an eye on condition. But if it's just something to throw up on your wall, condition's not as important as long as you like it. And then these days, unfortunately, if you really want to become a serious collector, you got to watch out for reproductions. Even in the pennant world, there are reproductions out there, which is kind of a bummer.
Oh no.
Yeah, and you see them on eBay getting passed off as the real thing all the time, and they sell for a lot of money and causes quite a bit of outrage in the pennant collecting community. So familiarize yourself with what the real thing should look like, and don't waste your money buying a reproduction.
That's one of the reasons I collect uncut sheets. Is just because it's hard to fake an uncut sheet, Rob. Yeah.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, Rob, if you're ready, we have a little quiz I'd like you to participate in. Sit back in your seat, kick your feet up, and first and foremost, the only rule: have some fun with it. So,
all right, let's do this.
You touched. Let's do this. I love it. Right on. You touched on this a little bit ago, but the 43 Eagles and Steelers, a.k.a. the Steagles, and the Steelers and Cardinals. who don't, in 44 don't quite have a cute name. So, the Browns moved, to Baltimore, became the Ravens, and the Ravens disowned all previous history of the Browns. Same thing, the midnight move of the Baltimore Colts to Indy. Now, even now, whenever Indianapolis plays the Baltimore Ravens, they put the Ravens up, because they refuse to have the word Baltimore on their scoreboard, which is kind of funny. In your opinion, in 1943, when the Steelers and the Eagles joined forces, and formed one team, the Steagles, should the Steelers and the Eagles forego all previous history of the teams and only go forward, in the 1945 Steelers and Eagles? What do you think?
That's
and this question is mostly for John Spano, who's a Steeler fan.
Yeah, so I want to make sure I understand the question. Are you saying that what transpired prior to the merge
should not be history associated with the team? Correct, yes.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't know how you handle that.
There's
really,
no right or
what
wrong
the best
answer,
way is.
There's no right or wrong answer. Don't be afraid to answer one way or the other.
Well,
yeah, I would say it still counts. I would say you got to count all the years of the team, even prior to that merge.
I agree with you, but I think there should be an asterisk there, just because John Spano's a Steelers fan. There's got to be. John's a friend of ours, by the way, Rob. So sorry to be the joke there. I noticed one of my favorite tabs on your website was defunct teams, and I loved that. I loved going in there and perusing it. So, quick lightning round. Who's your favorite defunct team, Brooklyn Dodgers or Chicago Rockets?
I would say the Chicago Rockets because, and for the only reason being that it's harder to find their stuff. Brooklyn Dodgers stuff comes up pretty regularly.
Brooklyn Tigers, Frankfurt Yellow Jackets.
I don't want to diminish the value of my pennant, so I'm going to say the Brooklyn Tigers because they're only around for 1 year. but in all honesty, it is next to impossible to find anything for the Frankfurt Yellow Jackets. So if one did exist, that would probably trump the Brooklyn Tigers.
Yeah.
L.A. Dons or Miami Seahawks? I'm giving you a chance to repent here.
Miami Seahawks. I don't have a Miami Seahawks pennant. I've only seen it for sale one time, and I did not get it. I don't know if I'll ever get another chance, but I would love to have a Miami Seahawks pennant.
All of their games were away. They were a 1-year AFC team, and they didn't have a home stadium, so all their games were away.
Yep.
So, okay, those are pretty good. Who had the better logo on a pennant? The 1940 Giants with a football player running at you, or the 1940 Steelers with a football guy running at you?
It's not the same logo, is it? I don't have my site up in front of me, but they both have pennants with a guy running at you. It is.
It is the exact same logo.
Yeah, it's the same.
In this case, I would say the Giants had the better one because I'm still kind of mad about the Steelers beating the Rams a couple weeks ago.
I was on I'm like, wait a minute, that Giants one looks just like the Steeler one I looked at. And I go back, I'm like, oh, the exact same thing. And that's where my quiz idea came up. So who was your favorite? The Giants? I would agree with that, yes, just because they're steeped in history. The Steelers' history starts in 1945, as we discussed earlier. All right. And last question. Which is your favorite 1940 Cleveland pennant? Guy running ball in left hand or guy running ball in right hand?
Well, that one exists. I don't know if you're talking about the Cleveland Rams or the Cleveland. I think you must be looking at the Rams.
Rams, yes.
I think they're both fantastic, but I'm left-handed, so I would go with the left-handed ball player.
Nice. And you had described there very rare left-handed ball running. And I had to go back and look and like, oh man, this guy's really got the details down. I loved that. Just all the little idiosyncrasies of pennants. So, well, right on, Rob. You went
by
7
definition,
for 7.
Anything from the Cleveland Rams is rare. Yep.
Yep. You went 7 for 7. You got 100%. Nice job.
That's awesome.
You did good.
What do I get?
You did good.
Hey,
Joe.
An old Seattle Seahawk pennant hanging on the wall.
Well, Rob,
if it's autographed by Manu Tuiasosopo, I'll take it.
Outstanding. Great poll, by the way. I was going to go with Dan Dornick or something like that. Jim Zorn. Manu Tuiasosopo. Outstanding. Good poll.
Rob, well, thank you very much for being on. I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I'm glad we were able to hook up. I got to say this to the audience. If you haven't checked out your website, please do. I mean, it's an incredible historical view of football pennants, and it just amazed me. I'm so amazed by it. And I truly congratulate you for putting it together. I know that's a labor of love, to say the least. And again, thanks for taking time out for talking with us, and I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future because I want to do a feature on you in the magazine in an upcoming issue, so we'll be in touch on that.
That would be great. Thank you for the kind words. I'm glad you guys like the site, and I'm happy to talk to you guys anytime. Thanks for having me on, and have a great Thanksgiving.
All right, you too.
Outstanding. Thank you, Rob.
All right, take care, guys.
Who has an incredible football pennant website, feltfootball.com. And we got about 5 minutes left, and we're going to go into our defensive mode here, and we're going to start wrapping things up. Joe, I'm going to hand off to you a little early. What'd you pick up on tonight's show?
I'm always impressed with people who are just doing things for the good of the hobby. It's like you, Captain. You run Swick Enterprises, and you do this podcast. I mean, and none of these are making you a millionaire. You do it for the good of the hobby. There's a couple people you bump into who just, put information out here like this, and it's for everyone to see, and they're not being selfish about it. It is just simply for the good of the hobby, and I always tip my hat to people who do that. And Rob seems to be that kind of guy, especially, if you go to his website and just check it out, it's you're in there for an hour, and you're picking up on the little details like I just talked about. The Cleveland Rams 1940 pennant, running with left hand ball and left hand, or running with ball and right hand. I mean, those nuances, that's pretty cool. I'm always impressed with someone who does that.
And again, that's preserving the history of the pennants and preserving the history of the game at the same time. This is truly incredible. Truly, and I was truly amazed that I stumbled upon the website, because I'm always looking for stuff, as you know, and stumbled on it, and we went back and forth with a few emails, and fortunately he was able to fit some time in today and talk. So it was a great education for me, even though, like I said, I only have a handful of pennants, and they're not hermetically sealed in those plastic pennant holders. I mean, I just got them hanging up with thumbtacks basically on the wall, and I only got like 3 or 4 of them up here, and that's it. So it's amazing. But all right, so now we got about 3 minutes left. I want to wrap a few things up here. Number one, Turkey Thursday is Thanksgiving, as we all know. It's a day of football, 3 games now instead of 2. So it's a great tradition. Detroit Lions playing in a game, Dallas Cowboys playing in a game, now a night game to look at. So it's going to be a good day of football, and it's a pretty slow weekend as far as that is concerned on Sunday, because now you have 3 games already on Thursday. So the whole weekend goes by a lot quicker. So I want everybody to enjoy their Thanksgiving coming up. I know you're traveling. Be safe. Have a good time with the family. We got a bunch of nieces and nephews coming over here for our traditional Thanksgiving at the compound. Sadly, it's getting smaller and smaller as the kids are growing up, getting married, and moving out of state, so on and so forth. But we still enjoy and still enjoy it. And they do say, "Do we have to watch the game?" And I said, "Yes, it's on in the background."
Yes.
And there's no other way of getting around it, to say the least. But
yes, we have to watch the game.
It's interesting.
I love it.
All right, we're down to less than 2 minutes. Other thoughts, Joe, on anything? Giving it back to you.
Yeah. I enjoy. I don't know if you listen to the shows after you do them, or if you just record them and put them up. But I enjoyed listening. I enjoyed listening to your and Jeff's show. I really dug the banter back and forth. It's good to know, somebody like Jeff can step in and take care of it, because, so it's good.
All kidding aside, it is not easy being a co-host on a show like this, for the simple reason you really gotta. Number one, you gotta have knowledge, which Jeff has by far and wide. We know that. And number two, I have a certain style that I do the show in, which is pretty basic. But at the same time, you have to pick up on what I'm doing here. And you and I, go back for how many years now? So my next move. You know what I'm going to say, type of situation. But it's not easy. It really isn't. It really isn't. I do know any guest co-host we have here.
Yep, I know when to shut up. I know when to let you run with it. I know. Yeah, it's just we're sitting 3,000 miles apart, so it's hard to
exactly.
And
it's kind of
have visual cues.
It's kind of cool that we can blend like that very easily, in a show like this. So it's great. All right, we're down about 15 seconds. We're going to wrap things up. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Check out our website, GridironGreatsMagazine.com. We're going to be back in December with a bunch of shows. Until then, have a great holiday. Thanks for listening.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Each week, the official Football Learning Academy podcast will take you deep into the history of pro football through interviews with players, coaches, or administrators in the NFL, as well as interviews with Pro Football Hall of Fame selectors, authors, and historians. You'll learn how the game evolved and important moments that shaped the sport into what it is today. And don't miss the Pro Football History Nugget of the Week. Listen to the official Football Learning Academy podcast on the Sports History Network.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcasts. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.